time frame from Thanksgiving of 2010 through most of 2011 was an emotional time for me. On Thanksgiving of 2010, my grandpa passed away. He and I were very, very close, and his death weighed heavily on me, so much so that I went into a fairly deep depression. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I didn't do anything. I just went to my job and kind of existed. After the shock slowly ebbed away after months and months from his loss, I still had trouble dealing with the fact that he was gone. My one saving grace came from a good friend and something we had done so many times before: turning on our Xboxes and playing some Halo. The Thanksgiving day didn't start out that way though. It started out as most holidays did for my family. Going to a relative's house and spending time with each other. You know, telling what we've been up to, watching Thanksgiving Day football, playing games, going outside and tossing a football around, etc. All was going well that day. Nothing too out of the ordinary, except for one fact. The fact that my grandpa and my mom weren't there. When I asked my grandma about it, she said that my grandpa was sick and that my mom was helping. Now, my grandpa was a big, burly man, relatively healthy except for a bad smoking habit. So I didn't really think too much of it and went about the rest of my holiday. Thanksgiving dinner came and went, shared some more stories. You know, Thanksgiving holiday stuff. But little did I know that my evening and for some time afterward, my life was going to go downhill very fast. As everyone was packing their stuff up and getting ready to leave, getting in their vehicles, something seemed a little off and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Now, my youngest sister and I got into our vehicle with our dad. The older of my two younger sisters went home with my grandpa and my other uncle. And as we got on the highway and we were headed home, back to my parents' house, my dad broke the news to my sister and I. Earlier that evening, my grandfather had passed away. There was no goodbye, no how much time does he have left, how sick is he, no nothing. He was just gone. The rest of the ride home was one of shock, tears, sobbing, disbelief, and the harsh reality that I would never ever get to see or speak with my grandfather ever again. After arriving back home, and then to my apartment that I share with some friends, I went to my room and laid down on my bed, just quietly sobbed until I had to leave for my Black Friday shift at GameStop, still emotionally distraught and an hour late. Now, to give you some context about how close I was with my grandfather, he was almost like a second father to me. He taught me how to treat people right, taught me how to work hard, do my best at everything that I did, don't worry about what everybody else thinks. My first professional football game was our Indianapolis Colts versus the Buffalo Bills. The Colts won 42-24. I'll never forget that experience. He came to most of my school sporting events, wrestling, baseball, cross country, something other grandparents and relatives never did really. He and my grandma once came to pick me up from the Hanover basketball camp that I attended. And on the ride home, he sang the "Don't Worry, Be Happy" song half the way back to his house, driving my grandma crazy. He only gave me driving advice once, and I'll apologize for the language beforehand, but his driving advice was don't fuck with semis. Obviously, you don't want to do that. Sorry for the language, again, those are his words, not mine. He would influence my love of animals, especially dogs. I always loved going to their farm and helping him out. I once spent an entire 2 weeks helping him put up a fence and gate around the farm property to keep out unwanted people from tossing stuff on his farm and unwanted critters getting in there. There was only ever one thing that he never liked talking about, and that was his childhood in Königsberg, Prussia. He had his reasons. It was during World War II, so... But that is a story for another time. And now all I have are fond memories of him. That's all I have. Memories. But now back to the story. As the days went by after hearing the news of my grandfather's death, I fell into a depressive state. I wouldn't eat anything. I couldn't, and wouldn't sleep. I didn't do any of the normal things that I would normally do. I didn't go to any movies. I didn't hang out with my friends. I didn't play video games. I didn't do anything. Didn't read a book, didn't go for a jog, didn't go work out, nothing. I didn't even go to family functions for the longest time. I just went to work at GameStop and kind of existed. Barely. My grandfather's funeral came and went. The whole family was there. Some people from where they lived, close friends, neighbors, people he had worked with.
Infection.
And I'll never forget that my little 1-year-old niece was running around the back of the church, oblivious to the grief, despair, and sadness that surrounded her. I wish that could have been me, but it wasn't. There were lots of tears and sharing of stories about my grandpa. Like the ones I told you just a minute ago, and more. And yet I still kept getting more and more depressed. I didn't hurt any less. I didn't feel any better. I didn't feel like I had any form of closure at all. My girlfriend, who is now my wife, tried many different things to help me get over it.
Double kill.
She did succeed in getting me to eat, though, so there's that. I started eating several months later. And as Christmas came and went, it would still take several months for the shock to ebb away, ever so slowly over his death. And it wasn't until late April of 2011 that I started acting less depressed than I had been. My friend Dustin, who was my assistant manager at GameStop at the time, told me that he was going to pull me out of this funk. He wasn't having any more of it. He wanted me to be happy. He wanted me to act like my old self. He didn't like seeing me sad. Also reasons why he's like a second brother to me.
Killing frenzy. Hell's janitor in.
Noble 1, this is Noble Actual. Noble 1, go ahead. We need that base taken out, son. What's your status? Still outside. Thermal on the interior shows scanning room only. We're gonna have to thin them out or it'll be way too popular. Copy that, Noble 1. Holland down. We got a job to do, so let's stay focused and get it done. 6, are you in position?
Affirmative.
Good. Execute.
Now, Dustin and I just started off talking about what had happened and what had been going on with him and everything, and just talking. He told me to come over to his apartment later and to not forget my Xbox and my games. I protested over and over by going over to his place to hang out, but he was extremely persistent. Like in the cutscene that just played, he had a job to do, which was to pull me out of my funk. So, about an hour or so later, I arrived at Dustin's apartment. As I entered his living room, I saw Dustin had set up an area for both of our consoles, a bunch of snacks, drinks, and a White Castle crave case with a gallon of sweet tea that has now become a yearly tradition of ours to do. He told me to set up my console and get everything situated. Once again, I protested, but he wasn't taking no for an answer. After talking a bit more about Dustin, he told me to turn on my console, and we were going to play some Halo Reach, something we've been doing since the game had come out. And as we started to play, I still moped around, even in the game. I didn't want to be there, after all. I was still depressed over my grandpa's death months before. I just wanted to stay at home and not do anything, just wallow in my sadness and despair.
1 minute remaining.
But Dustin was persistent. He kept telling me not to focus on what had happened last November over my grandfather's death. Just play the game like we had done for countless hours before. So, as we continued to play, I decided to try out Dustin's advice. I did my best to put the thoughts and memories of my grandpa's death to the back of my mind, at least as far as I could at the time. We played Halo Reach for hours and hours and hours into the next day for that night. We played campaign cooperatively over and over again. We played online multiplayer and all the different playlists the game had to offer. We even played the firefight mode that pits players against waves of increasingly difficult enemies with additional difficulty modifiers for an extra challenge. As we continued to play and talk, I felt my pain draining away for the first time in, months since I heard the news of my grandfather's death. Not just an ebbing away that I had been experiencing. It was going away. I was feeling like myself again.
Two enemies
The hurt was still there, and I still had a ways to go before getting the closure that I longed for, but it was a start. It wasn't the last of our overnight Halo sessions either. We'd have many more of those, and even add more and more friends to come play with us.
bonus
You know what they say, the more the merrier. Each time we held one of our Halo sessions, my depression would shrink away more and more. And the better I would feel. Whether we were playing the story in co-op, waves of firefight, multiplayer. We played and played and played and played. Hours and hours. If I needed something, Dustin was there for me. If I started feeling down again, he was there. He was always there with a crave case, a gallon of sweet tea, and Halo. Yeah. And adding more friends to the mix for these Halo fests was even more helpful. More friends for me to relieve my pain to listen. And after a few more months of playing Halo, having my friends there, I started enjoying myself again. Not just playing Halo either, but being around friends and family, movies, books, board games, etc. And there you have it.
Bonus round over.
Maybe not all of the intricate, tiny details, but you get the gist of the story.
Game over.
The Thanksgiving holiday that I learned of my grandfather's death, from the depressive state I was in to my friend Dustin's intervention being my saving grace, and to my depressive state going away thanks to playing Halo with my friends. I still haven't forgotten the events of that Thanksgiving in 2010, and I never will. But I was able to continue on with my life thanks to a great friend and doing something we've always done. Turning on our Xboxes and playing some Halo.
Reinforcements. Destination moved.